Why are companies, corporations around the world laying people off? Around the world, why are they doing that? It's actually a much deeper reason than you realize. Let's get into it. Alright, since the beginning of the year 2023, we saw a lot of news about companies laying people off, including employees in Meta, including employees in Google, in Microsoft, in Twitter. In Vietnam, there are many companies laying people off too, including companies like VNG, including all the real estate companies like Novaland. I know that because I hire a lot of people, I recruit a lot of people, I interview a lot of people from these people that have just recently lost their jobs. So I know all across the world, whether in Vietnam or in North America, a lot of companies are laying people off. But why is that happening? Today we're going to get into the real reasons why big corporations with a lot of money, with a lot of profit, why are they still laying people off? But first, let me take a sip. All right, so the reason why companies are laying people off at the very fundamental level is revenue and cost. So if the revenue is going down and the cost is going up, then the company does not have enough profit to support the payroll, does not have enough money to pay the employees. Makes sense, right? So that's why they have to lay people off. But remember, back in 2020, 2021, and even 2022, a lot of governments were printing a lot of money and all those money flowing around in the economy. And a lot of these companies are making huge profits. We're talking about companies like Tesla, even Meta, even Microsoft. All these companies are making huge profits during this time. But in 2023, the economy is not doing so well, and they start laying people off. But with all that cash reserve, with all that profit that happened in the last 2-3 years, why do they have to lay those people off? So the reason's actually much deeper than we realize. So when companies make money, they have 3 choices what to do with the profit. All right, one is they can save it. They can save the money in the bank. They can save the money in many different forms. So when the times are bad, they can use that saving to help themselves. That seems to make sense, right? But let me tell you, most corporations don't do that, all right? And second thing that they can do is they can spend it. So let's say if I am a company, I make $1 billion, all right? But my cost, payroll, electricity, rent, everything is about $900 million. That means I make about $100 million. And I can choose to save it or spend it. And the second option, I spend it, all right? I invest in more equipment, I invest in hiring more people, I invest into the business so that maybe next year I can turn that $1 billion into $1.2 billion or maybe $1.5 billion, right? By investing in a company, we can increase the revenue in the future. So some companies do that, but there's a third option. The third option is to give the money back to the owners, the shareholders of the company. So shareholders of the company are people that buy stock in the company. They're actually the owners of the company. And when they're owners of the company, they're actually higher level than the CEO. So when we think who is the top person in the company, we think maybe the managing director, maybe the CEO, but actually that is not true. There's actually one level higher than the CEO, right? All the workers report to the CEO, but the CEO report to the board of the directors, which represents the shareholders. And you know what the shareholders want? The shareholders want their piece of the pie. If the company made money, the shareholder says, you know what? I want some of that money too. And because the shareholder is more powerful than the CEO, and they can vote to ask the company to pay them some dividends. Dividends is some of the profit should go back to the shareholders. So in big corporations, the shareholders, the board of directors are powerful. They're more powerful than the CEO. So what they do is they will push the CEO to actually pay dividends, give the money back to the shareholders, the owners. All right, so again, 3 options. 1, the company can save it. But when companies save the money, let's say in my example, $1 billion in revenue, $900 million in expenses, $100 million in profit. In case the economy is not so good, they want to save that $100 million for the future to protect themselves. If the company makes $100 million and save it, the government will take half of that money. So $50 million will go to the government. So really the company is only saving about $50 million. So most companies don't want to do that. Most companies don't want to save the money because they don't like to give the money to the government, because that money, when given to the government, is not useful. It is not productive. It does not help the company in any way. So companies generally choose option 2 or option 3. Option 2 is to spend it, right? So spend it in the company, invest in more equipment, invest in more people. But in big corporations, shareholders are very powerful. They can push the company to give dividends through voting. They can vote, say, hey, company, you gotta pay me some dividends, all right? So, and the company has to pay its shareholders. So now you understand why companies don't generally save money. So when the economy goes bad, they have no money, right? So all of a sudden they realize they have no money to pay the employees, they have no money to pay the rent, they have no money to do this and that, and they freak out. They go, oh my God, we don't have enough money. So they start laying people off. But that's not the end of it, all right? That's not the end of it. If you think that's it, well, you're thinking very, very shallow, because there's actually an even deeper reason why now companies are laying people off like crazy. Let me get to that. But first, I need a sip of this really nice wine. Not bad, not bad. So let me tell you what really happens with these big corporations, all right? Back in 2020, 2021, and 2022, companies were making a lot of money because the government was printing a lot of money. So basically there was a huge amount of inflation, and basically there was a lot of money floating around. It was easy to make money. So a lot of big corporations made a lot of money. And when they make a lot of money, the balance sheet looks really, really good. It makes the company look really, really good. So what happens is that these companies can now go to the bank and say, hey, Mr. Bank, can you lend me some money, all right? Look at my financial statement. My company is doing really, really well. My financial statement is very, very healthy. We have a lot of money in the bank, all right? Can you let me borrow some money? All of the big corporations do this, right? They go to the bank and say, let me borrow some of your money. And because in 2020, 2021, 2022, you know what happened. There was some kind of, virus in the air, right? And so every government wanted to stimulate the economy, so interest rate was very, very low. It was very, very cheap to borrow money. You can go to the bank, you can pay almost literally no interest to get that money. And most of the corporations did that. They went to the bank and say, look at our company, we're doing so good. Please lend us some money. And all the banks said, okay. Take the company in my example. Revenue, $1 billion. Expenditure, $900 million. Profit, $100 million. And then this company went to the bank and borrowed $400 million. Now they have $500 million in the bank. And they give all $500 million to, guess what? The shareholders, all right? So they actually borrow money, give it to the shareholders. Now the company has debt. It has debt that has to pay back. And then now in 2023, you know what happened. Inflation is high. Governments around the world increase interest rate. Now that debt is becoming expensive, all right? That debt is so expensive. Now the companies are freaking out. They're like, fuck, I cannot even pay this debt. I cannot even pay the interest on this debt, all right? Or it's gonna be a big portion of their profit that will go service those debts. So what happens is that these companies are in a rush to lay off people because they need to reduce their payroll, because generally payroll is the number one expense of any company. Payroll is always number one. Fastest thing to get the cost down is by cutting people off, by laying people off. by reducing the number of people working for the company. So that is crazy. So now you know why all these major corporations around the world and also in Vietnam, they're in a rush to lay people off. So I feel sorry if you're one of those people that are affected by big corporation layoffs in the first part of 2023. I expect this will actually continue because the US Central Bank is continuing increasing interest rate, and this will push every country in the world to continue to increase interest rate. And that, of course, will push corporations to continue to reduce their cost. And this is inevitable. This is probably going to last a little while, probably at least 2 or 3 quarters, maybe longer. So in my other videos, we'll talk about how you can survive during this period, what you can do to make yourself immune from these layoffs. How can you secure your job? What you can do to navigate this economic downturn. All right, so take some fucking action. Now you understand why companies around the world are laying people off, especially why they're laying people off at this fast pace. And don't be a fucktard.